Dolly Parton, Empath, Narcissist, or something else? Part 7, Conclusion. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We have examined various facets of the life of Dolly Parton, taking evidence from a wide range of sources to help us gain as complete as possible picture as to what she might be vis-a-vis the baseline classifications of empath, narcissist, normal or narcissistic. I've looked at press reports. I've taken information from her autobiography, interviews, video interviews, what people have said about her, and other sources besides, in order to pull the information together, which we look at in the round, to determine what she might be. You've shared your observations in the comments section, which I've read with interest. Thank you for doing so. What might Dolly Parton be? Well, let's start by considering, is she a normal? The normal grouping is the largest on the planet. They exhibit emotional empathy, albeit for a reduced group of people. They have both empathic and narcissistic traits. They can be manipulative. They can engage in poor behavior and good behavior also. Their range of traits does not tend to be as extensive nor as strong as the other classifications, and furthermore, their range of emotional empathy, as I've mentioned, is narrower, although it remains deep for those that are subjected to it. I discount normal in relation to Dolly Parton as a consequence of the reach of her fame, but also the philanthropy that has been exhibited. Now, normals can engage in philanthropy. Just because someone engages in it doesn't either mean that they are narcissist or empath. Narcissist because they use their philanthropy for the pursuit of the prime aims, or empath because engaging in extensive philanthropy shows that you have emotional empathy outside of your circle of emotional empathy. Normals can engage in it as well, but they have differing reasons for the driver. And it would appear to me that the extent to which Dolly Parton has engaged in this philanthropy comes from a deep-seated driver which goes beyond that which would ordinarily be seen by a normal that engages in philanthropy. The fact is, we have to look at the environment that Dolly Parton grew up in, one of abject poverty, and that clearly has impacted upon her. Accordingly, that driver wouldn't be seen with the normal. We discount it. That driver may well be a lack of control environment, which could be one of the two parts which has created narcissism in Dolly Parton. Alternatively, it could be a driver whereby, having experienced this and understanding what it felt like, she understands at a visceral level the problems that other people have, and it fostered considerable emotional empathy for other people affected and resulted in a consistent application of behaviours over a sustained period of time. But the extent of the reach and behaviours of Dolly Parton are not that which would ordinarily be seen by a normal. I also discount narcissistic, because a narcissistic individual simply would not engage in these behaviours in the way that they had done so. They would be far more self-absorbed than Dolly Parton is. They would be far more self-centred and selfish, and you would see far more instances of that selfish behaviour manifested, almost with an admission of selfishness also. Now, we don't see such an admission with Dolly Parton, which either points to the fact that she is someone with considerable emotional empathy. Remember, all individuals have a degree of selfishness. You have to have some selfishness. But her selfishness is subsumed within those considerable empathic traits, which results in her being so helpful as she is. The alternative is that she is a very polished narcissist that has a fantastic facade. And there are, as you know, narcissists that behave in this way, whereby she comes across as caring, that you don't see the cracks in the facade because they're so well managed, and that it is all actually self-serving. But with the brilliance of a more evolved narcissist, she is able to get away with it. Normal is not applicable, we discount it. Narcissistic is not applicable, we discount it. As you might expect with someone such as Dolly Parton, she's either at one end of the scale or the other. She's either an empath or a narcissist. With regard to being a narcissist, it's certainly the case that she could be seen to be operating a highly polished facade. She has the charisma, the natural charisma that can be attributed to certain narcissists. She's earned financial firepower, which could point to a drive to assert control over people through the use of her natural talent as being a singer-songwriter. There is little dirt on her. The controversies that I've referenced are minimal in nature and would also sit with an individual who exerts not only a substantial level of control, but also has a very high threshold on her ignited fury, so that she is able to rise above the controversies by remaining in a position of withdrawal. As you heard, repeatedly, she doesn't engage, she simply keeps out of it. And therefore this may well demonstrate a skilled manipulator. Her relationship is an interesting one, whereby there does appear to have been instances of emotional infidelity, if not physical infidelity. She is often upfront about all of that, which perhaps supports an individual hiding in plain sight, as can be the case with higher echelon narcissists. We have a lack of control environment, undoubtedly, in relation to her upbringing. The abject poverty that she grew up in and the circumstances of all of that would readily qualify as a lack of control environment. Yet on the other hand, it might be seen that her extensive philanthropy, which has taken place repeatedly and consistently over many decades, is indicative of somebody with emotional empathy. The fact that she is largely free of controversy demonstrates an individual who does not have an inherent need to manipulate people, that doesn't have a pathological need for control which results in hurting other individuals. That her charisma, natural as it is utilised not as part of a well-managed facade, but in actual fact is part of who she naturally is, drawing people to her, people who like her, both in terms of her music and for what she does for other people, and her self-deprecating nature. The fact that she has helped so many people could be a particularly well-evolved cognitive empathy that's utilised to manage this facade so she can assert control over people and draw fuel. Or it might simply be a manifestation of the empathic goodness that exists within Dolly Parton, that having come from a poor background, she resonates with other people of similar situations where they're desperate and in need, and her innate emotional empathy, which has come into being as a consequence of that, means that she's moved to help them. What might it be? Are we looking at a highly evolved narcissist? Or are we looking at an empath? As you've just heard, a case can be made for either. On balance, I am of the view that there is a substantial ingredient that is missing in relation to Dolly Parton. Whilst it's clear that she grew up in a lack of control environment, I do not see that there is a narcissist in either of her parents. Her mother certainly comes across as empathic in relation to the way that she conducted herself, and her father, whilst a more reserved individual and more traditional, was hard-working, cared about his family, and was proud of his daughter's achievements. There are no narcissistic indicators in relation to him. Now, as you know, just because your parents aren't narcissists doesn't mean that someone can't become a narcissist, because the genetic predisposition may come from further back. But my research into the matter didn't find anybody in the lineage that would particularly associate with somebody that would be identified as a narcissist. And in the circumstances, whilst one can't be 100% sure, on the balance of probabilities, it seems to me that the genetic predisposition would be missing, and therefore it would be impossible on that basis for Dolly Parton to be a narcissist, because the genetic predisposition could not be passed down to her, and therefore that would automatically mean she can't become a narcissist. It also strikes me that her behaviour is one that is born out of genuine emotional empathy. The fact that she's not seen as being hypocritical, although people have attempted to level that at her, I see those accusations as self-serving rather than actually based on any substantial evidence. What is also notable is that she has engaged in this behaviour, the similar behaviour, for decades, and not only in a flashy way of, here, have some cash, but she's rolled up her own sleeves and got stuck in herself. For instance, in the creation of Dollywood, she has created something which serves the community by way of the creation of jobs and tourism income. She just hasn't written out a cheque. She has engaged herself in the promotion of her literacy programme and has been involved in ensuring that the government signs up to it also. She hasn't grown bored of these endeavours and has continued to engage in them when she could easily just sit back and rest on her laurels and bask in a job well done. But she continues to seek out those partnerships. One might think potentially that could be done for the purposes of seeking control and drawing fuel. But the nature of her behaviours, her disposition, her interactions with individuals, and the fact that you've never seen any crack in a facade, if one existed, tends to support that her behaviours are actually genuine, that they are born out of caring and compassion, strong empathic traits for the plight of other individuals. With regard to her domestic situation, whilst there's speculation about her own sexuality, that's all it ever has been. And until her husband's death, it would appear that that was a solid and mutually respectful relationship. The suggestions of emotional infidelity, well, at the end of the day, it's the case that empaths aren't flawless, and one might see that as potentially a dirty streak that might be found within Dolly Parton. Having considered the evidence most carefully and analysed her life, the conclusion in relation to Dolly Parton is she is an empath. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I'd encourage you to do so, and don't forget to like this video to increase its prominence so more people can enjoy work of this nature. Thank you.